Well, it looks like evolution has taken yet another tremendous hit on Institute for Creation Research site, ICR.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Slow down there, Seabiscuit. Now, before you go galloping off on your usual shtick, Carl, what was the name of that website?
ICR, Institute for Creation Research.
Institute for Creation Research. It's a creationism website.
In other words, it's a huge shit sandwich and we're all gonna have to take a bite.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Carl, but please continue.
There's an article entitled "Scientists Are Late to Recognize Human and Giant Mammal Coexistence."
Hey, wait a sec. I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. Scientists late to recognize human and giant mammal coexistence? Are you kidding me, Carl? Really, ICR? Unless, of course, this title is intentionally constructed to be misleading, deliberately worded to make any scientist who studies any aspect of the history of our planet but does not believe in this inept. But ICR wouldn't do that, right, Carl? Unless, of course...
How many lies have you told in your life?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. Too many to count.
So what do you call someone who tells lies?
A liar.
Let's take a look at the original article in which ICR cites as its information source for this article. Yeah, that's about right. Looks to me like ICR deliberately changed a couple words there, Carl. Now, if ICR had chosen this title, I would not question the intelligence, integrity, or intention of the writer. And, unfortunately, the title is just the tip of the steamy pile that follows in the contents of this ICR article. It appears that ICR used a process similar to this in order to compile the information chosen for their article. No surprises here. ICR found a story about a legitimate scientific discovery, but then filtered out the parts that did not fit into their creation story, kept the parts that could be used if interpreted or spun properly, added commentary, speculation, and assumptions that had nothing to do with the scientific information's original intent or findings, and arrived at a conclusion that had nothing to do with the context or content of the original work. How convenient, ICR. Because of that little matter of Creatard convenience, before I go any further, I'm going to change the name of your institute, ICR, at least within the scope of this video, to something that I think is a little more fitting. That's better. Okay, Carl, you have the floor. Please continue.
The article says giant mammals roamed North America during the Ice Age, but were humans among them? Well, that's an interesting question. The article goes on to say a site in Vero Beach on Florida's east coast contains mammoth, mastodon, giant round sloth fossils, and amongst those fossils, human fossils. Well, you see, folks, the problem is that evolution has been telling us forever and ever.
You have got to be shitting me, Carl. Are you really going to go there? Why do I get this sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that this was only the beginning of a two-cycle process? So, what is it, according to you, Carl, that evolution has been telling us forever and ever?
That humans were not yet supposed to have been there at the same time that these dinosaurs were.
Holy shit!
According to the standard story told to generations of archaeologists.
Holy shit!
Well, you see, folks, the problem is that evolution has been telling us forever and ever that the mammalian megafauna that lived in North America at the end of the Pleistocene epoch were dinosaurs. They were big, and they're extinct. Therefore, according to evolution, they were dinosaurs. Well, you see, Carl, the real problem is that evolution has been telling us forever and ever no such fucking thing. Only a creatard like you would make such a claim about evolution, Carl. Only other creatards like these make just as ridiculous claims. No scientist involved in any field of research requiring knowledge of evolutionary theory has ever made any such ass-hat claims such as the ones that you guys keep scooping up and feeding to your flock as if it were fact. Only a creatard like you, Carl, would conveniently and disingenuously change the taxonomic classification of an animal into something it is not in order to deliberately mislead your gullible listeners into believing in your horribly digested and then shat out between two slices of bread version of taxonomy, which, by the way, is in no way, shape, or form even mentioned in this silly ICR article from which you are quoting, but intentionally made by you to sound like it is, for the sole purpose of falsely demonstrating just how stupid evolution is and therefore proving your false dichotomy, that evolution is a lie, and that the only other option is that magic is real and that fairy tales, if found in the right book, are true. How convenient, Carl. Let's just see how much brown stuff you are willing to stack onto this tasty little sandwich you are building for your flock to masticate on, Carl. Let's start with your deliberate misquoting of that steamy stool of an ICR article from which you are reading.
But when discovered in the early 1900s, researchers insisted that the Vero Beach remains of the humans, they had washed in, long after the large mammals fossilized. But new scientific results, like so many other similar reinvestigations of old sites like that, show that these human remains were fossilized, if you will. They were made that way at the same time as the dinosaur remains.
What the fuck are you babbling about, Carl? Nowhere in this paragraph is the word dinosaur used in any way, shape, or form, and you know that. You just keep breaking the 9th commandment and saying that it does, for the sole purpose of getting your flock to conjure up images like this or this or this in their need-to-believe heads, because you know that they are not going to go behind you and verify if what you are saying is what is actually written in the article. And you know that once they bite into your lie that this article confirms this and this and this, that they will take the next ignorant, misguided step and believe that this must be true as well. Lying. How convenient, Carl. And if you're going to claim that you are not lying, well, Carl, misquoting is lying. And you had the article right in front of you when you did your radio show. You know what was written, and you know how it should have been read. So let's see how you do on your second time around on the same sentence.
And apparently, according to the latest scientific results, humans lived and died in North America long before once believed, and at the same time that these so-called ancient dinosaurs were roaming the earth. What took researchers so long to acknowledge this? The reason why it took so long for the evidence to come to light may be the same reason why fossil evidence of humans and dinosaurs is so scarce.
So scarce? Well, if by scarce you mean non-existent, then you would be right. No fossils like this have ever been found anywhere, Carl. Never once has any fossil of a human, let alone any modern mammal, ever been found in situ with a dinosaur fossil. And as to this, I'm not even sure what the hell you're talking about here, Carl, since you are lying about what this article says and you have absolutely no clue what a dinosaur is.
archaeologist at the University of Florida, the article says, analyzed the concentrations of rare earth elements in the various bones from the Vero Beach site, finding that they all statistically matched. This evidence shows, according to the article, that they were buried simultaneously.
Simultaneously?
And it contradicts the long-standing dogma that humans had not yet arrived in America. Huh.
No, Carl. The interjection here should not have been,
Huh.
but rather, You see, this is exactly what happens when creatards like the ones at ICR get their hands on scientific news and run it through this process, and then another creatard like you gets a hold of that pile and runs it through for a second time. And since both you and ICR have both butchered this article beyond all repair in order to make it sound as if it supports your favorite book of fables, let me tell you what this article is really about. It has to do with human migration, a mass extinction, location, and scientific dating techniques, and absolutely nothing to do with dinosaurs or evolution, human or otherwise. In other words, the article simply states that nearly 100 years ago, human remains were discovered with extinct Pleistocene animal remains in the same undisturbed layer of strata. The conventional wisdom of the time of the discovery was that humans should not have been in North America, let alone what is now modern-day Florida, 13,000 years ago, just prior to the mass extinction of many late Pleistocene mammals. The age of the remains could not be tested because of the lack of technology at the time and could not be radiocarbon dated when that became available decades later due to the condition of the remains. But now, using rare earth element analysis, it has been determined that all the remains tested, including the human remains, do indeed date to the late Pleistocene epoch around 13,000 years ago. Which, by the way, Carl and ICR, does not mean they were buried, how did you put it?
Simultaneously.
You know what this is, Carl? And no, it's not a chicken. It is a map depicting human migration routes out of Africa and across the globe. This data is based upon discoveries made in the fields of genetics, archaeogenetics, and mitochondrial DNA analysis, and for the most part, short of a few anomalies, is continually being verified through archaeological discoveries using modern dating techniques such as rare earth element analysis via mass spectrometry and radiocarbon dating, which for some reason, according to your cronies, only seems to work when it looks like it favors their myths. How convenient. A century ago, the accepted model based on the available evidence, knowledge, or lack thereof, and with the total absence of any deep history dating techniques, was that humans did not migrate to North America until around 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, and then to what is now modern-day Florida several centuries after that, or about, as believed at the time, 6,000 to 10,000 years after the extinction of the mammalian megafauna which once lived in the same locations. It was this gap here that started the whole old Vero Man site controversy. It had nothing to do with this or this. With that in mind, for you to claim that the coexistence of humans and those big furry creatures you love to call dinosaurs somehow disproves evolution is absolutely nuts. The archaeological establishment has acknowledged this coexistence of Upper Paleolithic people and late Pleistocene mammals for over a century now. Who do you think drew these, Carl? Or any of the thousands of polychrome images of megafauna found in caves scattered throughout Europe? What we do not find in any of these thousands of images is something like this. Now, if you would get your information from here instead of here, you understand why.
I wonder why this evidence was suppressed for so long.
Suppressed for so long? Although you did not come right out and say it, sounds to me like you are implying something like this. You know, Carl, a well-published archaeologist sent me an email the other week, and here is what he said. Science, because it involves humans, is imperfect and sometimes goes off on tangents that prove to be unproductive. Science is self-correcting, however, and there is no better method of understanding human and Earth history. Without science, we are literally doomed as a species or a civilization. You see, Carl, nothing was suppressed, but something was corrected. That is what the advancement of science does. There is a reason why we went from this to this, 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 and even this to this. That's right, Carl. This coexistence that you seem to think somehow disproves evolution did indeed take place in North America. It is a scientific fact. It is odd, however, how both you and ICR intentionally omitted the time of this coexistence, which was around 13,000 years ago. How convenient. I wonder why you guys did that.
In the ICR article, there's an interesting quote from a University of Oregon archaeologist, John Erlandson. He told Nature magazine, quote, "I was once warned not to write about coastal migration in my dissertation. My advisor said I would ruin my career," end quote. There you have it.
There you have what, Carl? This again? Typical Creatard tactics you are invoking here, Carl. What both you and ICR intentionally failed to mention is that Dr. Erlandson was working on his dissertation, about 30 years ago. Now, you might be behind the 8 ball on this, but the rest of us would be more than happy to let you know that science has progressed quite a bit since 30 years ago. And that includes the study of North American human migrations. Several theories are being explored today, one of which is indeed coastal migration. When humans first arrived in the Americas is still a mystery, and it will be one that will probably endure for years to come, but one thing is for certain. The time frame keeps getting pushed further and further back into time, not forward. Now, I do not know exactly what was said between Dr. Erlandson and his ill-advising advisor, but I do know that it had nothing to do with this. How do I know this? Because I know what he said to me. That's right, that well-published archaeologist who wrote this to me was indeed Dr. Erlandson, who also went on to say this: the idea that the Earth is not billions of years old or that the human lineage is not more than 1,000,000 years old is preposterous and simply untrue. So there you have it, Carl.
I'm telling you, folks, I've been saying this for decades, that so much of the evolutionary mythology and the evolutionary garbage that we're taught as truth.
Taught as truth, Carl? Because we all know that if one were to read this book, or any of the thousands of scientifically based books written on the subject in the 150 plus years in between, one will find this.
There's a big bang, life form begins, and over millions of years, a dog evolves. It's the first dog. He's got a tail, legs, teeth, eyes, and it's good that he's got eyes because he needs to look for a female. He's been blind for millions of years, but now he can see. Right. He's got to find a female.
All the dogs have kittens all over the place, and the cows have lambs.
She's got to be evolved at the right place, the right time, with the right reproductive organs and a desire to mate. Everything has to have a female evolve at the right place, at the right time, right reproductive organs, and a desire to mate.
All the dogs have kittens. All the dogs have kittens. All the cows have lambs. All the cows have lambs.
Well, what can I say, Carl? When you're right, you're right. This is mythology and garbage, and should be shoved in the same trash can as this mythology and garbage. This is what is taught inside of churches. This is what is taught inside of educational institutions. Do you know why, Carl?
Because certain powerful people want it taught.
Powerful people, Carl? Who are these powerful people? As a matter of fact, I could be wrong, but I think I mentioned these mysterious powerful people in a video I made a while back. Are you alluding to these guys? A well-documented, well-funded evolutionary conspiracy consisting of the entire scientific community, world governments, corporate giants, evil media moguls, New World Order, the Illuminati, the local police, the international police, the FBI, the CIA, the second gunman on the grassy knoll, Gates, Oprah, Hitchens, Dawkins, and all their co-conspirators, them. Well, I must say, I was hoping that you were not talking about this shadowy, clandestine, illusory of a conspiracy that exists only inside of your head. But apparently you are, so do tell us more about these certain powerful people.
Certain powerful people want it taught, And the people who know differently are told, if you write about it or if you reveal it, your careers will be ruined.
What are you talking about? Are you trying to say that what Dr. Erlandson wanted to write about in his dissertation was challenging the theory of evolution? Or that what his advisor told him was a threat not to challenge evolution? How convenient, Carl, and absolutely insane. That is about as crazy as saying that writing about coastal migration somehow challenges the theory of relativity. Oh, and by the way, exploring the possibility of a Western North American coastal migration really ruined Dr. Erlandson's career. Do you want to know how to really screw the pooch and ruin a career within the scientific community? It is by believing in this, which is what ICR wrote about in the very next paragraph of this farcical aromatic creatard of an article, and I quote, "If a career can be ruined over as trivial a matter as challenging a North American Ice Age migration story, how much more easily would it be ruined by a researcher challenging the story of dinosaur extinction millions of years before man by daring to consider evidence of human and dinosaurs having lived together?" Evidence? What evidence? Not this, nor this. You must mean evidence like this Paleolithic cave painting of a mammoth fighting a dinosaur. Or this unmistakably anatomically correct 800-year-old temple carving of a stegosaur. Or this prehistoric North American petroglyph that your ilk, like a bunch of 5-year-olds with a box of crayons, some wishful thinking, and an eye for pareidolia, color in at whim so it'll look like this. Or any of the evidence put forward by this clown. These are not pieces of evidence, ICR. There's another word for what these pieces are, and I will give you a clue as to what that word is. It is something that comes out of here. And as to your question, well, considering it is meant to be misleading and your premise is not true since the person you are talking about did not ruin his career by adhering to this idea, let's just cut to the chase of what you are really asking, which is this. And the answer to your question would be no more so than an aeronautical engineer ruining his career by using this model as his foundation for designing aircraft.
Politics, money, power, greed, and godlessness. That's what's behind evolution.
That's what's behind evolution? Right, Carl. Because we always see the likes of, Richard Leakey, Eugenie Scott, Richard Dawkins, and even Aaron Raw out there just fleecing the flocks for every nickel they can get their greedy little hands on, running for political office or kissing the asses of political leaders because this is what science is all about. Right, Carl? When it comes to politics, money, power, greed, and godlessness, it seems to me that you are knowingly confusing evolution and science with televangelism and organized religion. How convenient, Carl.
I can assure you, real science, real, demonstrable, verifiable, observable, falsifiable scientific method is not behind most of so-called evolutionary science.
Well, I hate to admit it, Carl, but you're right again. Not only is this scientific method not behind most of evolutionary science, it isn't behind any of it. And I'm sure you will say it is not behind creation science either. But, as reflected in this chart, these are indeed the foundations of creation science when it comes to biology and genetics. Evolution, on the other hand, is the foundation of, and/or supported by, and/or relied upon, and/or interactive with such scientific fields of study and disciplines as biology, microbiology, molecular biology, anthropology, paleontology, paleoanthropology, genetics, paleogenetics, population genetics, ecological genetics, phylogeny, immunology, phylogenetics, cytology, systematics, paleoecology, psychology, morphology, botany, ecology, ecological genetics. Carl, you can live in la 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 land and shove those fingers as deep inside of the sides of that scientifically vacuous space between your ears as you possibly can, but it will not change reality. Evolution is not only a theory, it is also a fact. And unlike this garbage, it is real science, bitch. And if you would open up one of these books for a change, you might just realize how stupid you sound when you... Damn, you are annoying, Carl. Finally, thank you, Evo. Like I was saying, if you would open up one of these books for a change, you might just realize how ignorant you sound when you claim that, according to the theory of evolution,
evolution has been telling us forever and ever
that human migration is synonymous with evolution, and that Homo sapiens evolved in North America
long after
the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna. After all, you did say...
Evolution has been telling us forever and ever
that the megafauna was there first. Not only that,
evolution has been telling us forever and ever
that these Pleistocene mammals were actually dinosaurs. Not to mention that
evolution has been telling us forever and ever
that dinosaurs were birds and fish are dinosaurs. And let's not forget this gem.
Evolution has been telling us forever and ever
that the reason why evolution occurs in nature is because all living organisms, including this chicken, and yes, Carl, this time it is a chicken, are nothing more than greedy, power-hungry God-haters that are driven by natural selection to seek a career in politics. So you see, Carl, next time you make this claim,
well, it looks like evolution has taken yet another tremendous hit.
You might want to first get a clue as to what evolution actually is. And if you choose not to, and decide to continue to live in ignorance and be a dispenser of lies and misinformation, all I can say is, how convenient, Carl.
Listen, Evo, I hope I wasn't out of line with that crack about the hit.
There's a big bang, life form begins, and over millions of years, a dog evolves.
Well, you see, folks, the problem is that evolution has been telling us well, it looks like evolution has
and over millions of years, a dog evolves.
All the dogs
It's the
have
first
kittens all
dog.
over the place.
He's got a
The
tail,
cows have
legs,
lambs.
teeth, eyes, and it's good that he's got eyes
folks,
because he
the
needs to
problem
look